Hi, my name is Norma Johnson. I am a licensed insurance agent as well as a licensed pharmacist, and I have been spending months now, well, technically a few years, but definitely since May, doing a lot of education around Medicare Part D. It's something near and dear to my heart. I've been involved in the pharmaceutical industry for almost 25 years. I know the system well. And of course, Medicare Part D has been around since 2006. So I've spent a little bit of time doing a few videos. I did one on Medicare Part D, past, present, and future. That is on my YouTube channel where I'm going to be posting this one. I've also talked about the upcoming Medicare prescription payment plan that starts January of 2025. We're also calling that the M3P program. So I did one kind of just given the basics about the program, and I did another one last night talking about the math that's involved in trying to calculate payments, which can be complicated because there's been a lot of confusion about that. The next thing that I actually want to talk about, and this is probably going to be my last video prior to annual enrollment period, because of course we're gearing up for probably the roughest, busiest annual enrollment period that we have encountered since the first year of Medicare Part D. So it is a very busy time for all agents across the country, as well as this is going to be a very confusing time for consumers. And so I'm doing these videos to do a couple of things. One, it allows me to train agents and kind of clear the confusion because it is something that I know so well. But it's also something that I have agents who are sharing my videos with their clients and with their potential clients to try to educate them so that we have as many Medicare recipients educated about key things that are happening and changing for 2025 in relation to Medicare Part D. And when I talk about Medicare Part D, this involves not only the standalone prescription drug plans that we call PDPs, but it also involves the prescription drug plans that's included in the Medicare Advantage plans. So this is something that everybody technically needs to know. So what we're going to talk about is what we call TROOP, true out-of-pocket expenses. For this year and in the past, it's been calculated one particular way. And I'll briefly cover that here in just a moment. But now it's going to be calculated differently. And we need to understand what type of plan we're looking at so that you can understand how this is calculated and how it's going to impact the client or you if you happen to be a consumer. So the true out-of-pocket cost, or what you pay, is what you're physically paying out of pocket or what people are paying on your behalf. So in 2024, this year, if you go to the pharmacy and you pick up a prescription and you pay $50 copay, that $50 copay gets counted. What the plan pays does not get counted. So if you are on a plan for this year and it's had a deductible, then everything that you're paying towards that deductible will also be counted towards TROOP. Once you get out of the deductible, you get into the initial coverage phase. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm going to show you a chart. Now, this is not my chart. I want to give credit where credit is due. This is KFF's chart. It's a beautiful chart, but it explains it well so that we can understand. What we want to focus on is 2024. 2023 is very similar. I talked about this chart also in the Medicare Part D, past, present, and future, but we want to focus on troop. So here you are in 2024, 100% deductible is all on you. So you pay the deductible, and what you're paying out of pocket gets counted towards your troop or your true out-of-pocket costs. Then you cross into the initial phase. That's what this phase right here is. In the initial phase, you're paying up to 25% in tier 3. So those are your preferred brand name drugs. And the plan is picking up 75%. Well, there's two things being calculated. One is the progression for you to go from here on up to here. That's the progression. And certain things get counted into that. And then there's troop. So then there's different things that's counted for that. So in the progression, what the plan pays also gets counted. And that's why you get through the initial coverage phase relatively quickly. If you're taking brand name drugs or, 2 or 3 brand name drugs, you will end up through the initial coverage phase and into the coverage gap, also known as the donut hole, relatively quickly. And it's all because of what's being counted towards your progression through those phases, right? However, not all of that's counted towards your troop or your true out of pocket. The only thing that gets counted towards your true out of pocket is the deductible that you've paid out of your pocket and the copay that you have paid during this initial coverage phase. Now, once you get across this line, you are now in the coverage gap, or we also call it the donut hole. And in the donut hole, this little 5% is the plan. Now, that doesn't get counted anymore, right? Because you're now in the coverage gap. So they're really, yes, there's still a progression, but the only thing that's going to get counted through this phase is what gets counted into troop. So you have what you paid on deductible if you had a deductible, the amount you paid out of pocket up to your 25%, and now you're here. Now here in the gap, you will also be paying, or if you were paying less than 25% in the initial coverage phase, maybe it was a lower percentage, maybe it was a flat copay, whatever you were paying. But once you get into the gap, you are now paying 25%. So to give you an example, maybe you've been on Eliquis and maybe you had to pay a deductible, or maybe you were on an MAPD plan, a Medicare Advantage plan with the drug plan, and you didn't have a deductible, so that you didn't have that expense. But then you had some kind of copay in here. No matter what you were paying in here, once you cross this line and you get into the gap, you are now paying 25%. So if you have Eliquis and they say it costs $600 for 1 month's supply, 25% of that is $150. And that's what your copay is going to be until you reach up here, which would be the catastrophic phase. Now, troop is important in this phase right here, because if you hear the word troop or true out of pocket, say in the back of your head, exit, right? You hear troop, you all of a sudden think exit, right? Like hot, cold, troop, exit, okay? So that's the exit into the gap. So what you pay gets counted. This part does not get counted, what the plan has paid, but while you're in the gap, this green is the manufacturer's portion. Now you won't feel this, you might not even realize it, but on some products, like on brand name meds, the manufacturer is required to contribute 70% towards your troop when you're in this phase. So the troop for this year, I shouldn't say that, the catastrophic level for this year, being 2024, is $8,000. Now, Medicare says the consumer or the Medicare recipient will be paying approximately $3,250 of that $8,000, and they will enter into catastrophic. Well, it's $8,000. So you're not paying $8,000 to get into catastrophic because this 70% gets counted. So if you're on several brand name meds, this helps you by getting you out of this more expensive phase and get you across this line into catastrophic, to where in 2024, your copay goes down to zero for all on formulary covered meds for the rest of the year. Now that's how Troop is calculated. In 2025, that is going to change some, and that's what we're going to talk about, is what's changing. So I'm going to scroll back up. So of course, the Troop is a portion of the spending on covered drugs, either paid by you or somebody on your behalf. And what I'm referring to typically there's a few different things, but the big thing that I see is if somebody qualifies for a grant. Now, if you're on a very expensive cancer med, there is a high probability that there is a grant available. Now, you may not, if you're a consumer, you may not know a thing about a grant, but I would be looking at your agent and saying, what do you know? And if they don't know, they're not following me well enough. So you tell them to get a hold of Norma, because a grant is a powerful tool that can save you a ton of money, because what the grant pays on your behalf gets counted towards Troop. I have a client who's on, I have a couple of them, but that is on a very expensive medication. In January, the very first medication that he fills is that very expensive med that he gets a grant for. That grant pays the deductible and his copay and coinsurance completely, right, up until the limit of the grant. But the grant is big enough to where he literally reaches catastrophic right after that prescription is filled. And then the rest of the year, he pays zero on the rest of his medication as long as they're on formulary. That's a powerful tool. So that you want to keep in mind. And now there's not going to be a grant typically. There's exceptions to everything. There are some generics that will have a grant. So definitely look toward your agent, because your agent should be paying attention, and your agent should be able to say, hey, there's a grant for that. Let's see if you qualify. And if you do, I'm going to have you call them and apply. So, and if you get a grant, fantastic. They're great to get. And there's other things, but what I love about a grant is that it gets counted towards your Troop, and that lowers what you're paying out of pocket. So, and by now you've probably read some of this stuff. So there's certain things that get counted towards that Troop, and that's really what I've covered. The Inflation Reduction Act changes a couple of things. Now, in here, it does talk briefly about the Part D sponsors, which is the plan, and employer group waiver plans, right? So they currently, so the Inflation Reduction Act specifically amends the definition of incurred costs and that count towards Troop for 2025. So what the plan had paid as far as supplemental benefits, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, is not being counted in 2024, as well as in the group plans, which we don't really pay attention to, but they also fixed that going into 2025, because certain things were being excluded, and Medicare said, you know, that shouldn't be that way. Let's fix this. So they're changing things up, right? Now, one thing to point out is that in 2025, if you've watched my other video, you know that the gap or the donut hole goes away. So we're no longer going to have the 70% that gets counted towards troop. We won't have that. What we do have is 10% by the manufacturer in the initial coverage phase, but that's no longer going to count towards troop. So certain things are going to count. Other things will not count. Now, will a grant still count? Yes. But will what the manufacturer's contributing count? No, not for 2025, but some other things are going to. So let's scroll back up. So that's what I'm covering here as far as the inclusion of previously excluded, and they call them supplemental benefits because the plan is allocating money that they're given by Medicare for somebody being on a plan. They're allocating funds to certain areas in the drug plan. And we're going to talk more about that in a moment. And that's what's called a supplemental benefit. So previously excluded, now going to be included. The manufacturer, now they're getting rid of the portion where the manufacturer was contributing in the coverage gap. That's now becoming the new discount program, and now that's going to be excluded. So let's talk about what you really need to know. There's going to be two types of drug plans, whether it's a PDP or inside of a Medicare Advantage plan. They are either going to be a basic alternative or an enhanced alternative, right? And I want you to understand the difference because that helps you make a decision that's best for you. So plans are going to come in these two different forms. Now, the plans are going to have to tell you, they might not specifically, you might have to dig, but it will be in there. But they don't have to say a word, and I'm going to tell you how you can tell, is it a basic alternative or an enhanced? So Medicare sets what they call is they're calling it a non-defined standard deductible. So they can offer that. So what I want to talk about is the defined standard. I don't want to confuse you with this non-defined. So a defined standard is what Medicare stipulates. Now, you are fully aware that normally plans come with a drug deductible. That amount, the maximum amount, is set by CMS or Medicare every year. That's a defined standard. They also define the maximum amount in a tier 3 drug level that a plan can charge a Medicare recipient. So it's defined standard, deductible, and tier 3 copay, okay? If they charge less than that defined standard, that's a supplemental, right? That's a supplemental benefit because the plan is taking it from where CMS says it has to, or it can, that's the max, and they're going to lower it. And when they lower it, that becomes a supplemental, okay? So a basic alternative plan is pretty much going to stay at that defined standard. Matter of fact, it's going to. So for 2025, the Part D drug deductible will be $590. You can write that down. So it's on a standard deductible. Plans can charge up to, but cannot go over $590. Okay, that's important. And then in tier 3, where the preferred brands are, they cannot go over 25%. Now, Medicare does not say they can't go less, but remember, if they go less, the difference is the supplemental benefit. So in a basic alternative plan, expect to see $590 deductible and 25% in tier 3, period. $590, 25%. They're not coming off of what that limit is that CMS is setting. There is no supplemental benefit, right? There is no supplemental because they're keeping it right there at $590 and 25%. In that case, if you're on one of these plans, what only thing it gets counted towards troop is what's coming out of your wallet or your purse, right? Because there is no difference. There is no supplemental benefit that gets added. And remember, what the manufacturer contributes no longer counts. Now, you could have a basic alternative plan and you could be getting a grant. Now, that grant money is still going to count, right? So that's a good thing. But if you don't have a med that has a grant or you don't qualify for a grant, it's all on you. So if I would expect to see $590 for a deductible, 25%, something to keep in mind. Now, there are some pros with basic alternative plans. They're typically going to have a lower premium. So it might be as low as $0 out there. But you can expect a lower premium. Now, that could be a good thing because if somebody is only on a few low-cost generics, they're never going to hit catastrophic, right? So why pay more per month than you have to? Makes sense to be on one of these basic plans, but you have to keep in mind, though, that you're going to, whatever happens during the course of the year, it's coming out of your pocket. Now, the max out of pocket, which is new for 2025, is going to be $2,000. So that's going to help. It's no longer going to be catastrophic at $8,000. It's now going to be catastrophic at $2,000. So that helps, especially if people are on really, really expensive meds. They're going to be capped out at $2,000, and then for everything that's on formulary, their copay will go to $0 for the rest of the year. So the pros of a basic alternative: lower premium, and so they cover the standard Part D prescription benefits. So okay, but there's some cons, right? So they don't offer anything beyond that standard deductible or standard coinsurance. They're already at the max. So you're paying out the $590 and the 25% until you reach $2,000. Formularies may be an issue. We will not know until October 1st what these formularies look at. As soon as these formularies come out, I personally will be counting all of the drugs on each of the different phases or tiers. And I do that. There are some software that does that. However, remember, I'm a pharmacist and I know these formularies. And what they do is, if you ever look at your formulary, there is a ton of birth control pills on that formulary. Now, you may ask yourself, why do they need to be there? Well, there are people younger that happen to be Medicare recipients, so it's needed. However, it can skew the numbers. If you end up having, 250 different versions of a birth control, that's not very helpful for our seniors or our older Medicare recipients. And it's the same thing with vaccines. Because although we might have a handful of vaccines you're going to typically get, there might be 45 to 50 vaccines listed on a formulary. So I don't rely on software counting the drugs because I'm going to eliminate those two groups, right? I want to get down to the bones of what's really on these formularies. And then if I don't see things that look quite right, I'm going to dig even further and determine, okay, are they fluffing the numbers? Because what I don't want to see is a very small amount of medications on tier 1 And tier 1 and 2, those are our lowest costing tier drugs, right? So those are the lowest costing generic meds. Now, if you have just a single ingredient, they should be in tier 1. If you have a combination, they still should be in tier 1, but sometimes we will see them in tier 2. Something has to go in tier 2. So I want to see decent numbers there. I also want to see decent numbers in tier 3. I don't want to see a whole lot in tier 4 because your copay will be higher than that 25%. And I do want to see some decent numbers in tier 5 because those are your specialty drugs. But now you have to keep in mind what CMS regulates there. So there's going to be a lot of the 6 protected class drugs in that tier 5. So you are going to see a reasonable number that's in there. That's for a conversation. We can do I'll do a training maybe end of December, right before January, that starts talking about formularies, copays, deductibles, transitional fills, and maybe some of that stuff that you as a consumer need to understand. We'll talk about that before and when we get into January. But, so I want to see good numbers. And in those numbers, I want to see reasonable buildup of drugs. So that's what I look for. So could we expect a narrower formulary? I'll guarantee it. I'll guarantee it. These low-cost plans, are they going to have a bunch of the GLP-1s that people are using for type 2 diabetes and weight loss? No, I seriously doubt it. Those things are god-awful expensive. And these plans are lower premiums, which means there's not a lot of money coming in. Now, will they have some? Sure, they're going to have some, but you may have to be flexible and maybe change drugs, right? Talk to your doctor. Maybe yours is not going to be on formulary, but there's going to be something on formulary. So talk to your agent, have them look at the plan. They can't make suggestions per se unless they're getting that guidance from me. But, they can say, hey, that particular drug is not on your formulary, but based on my resources, these are. So if you talk to your doctor and they're willing to change, then we could put you on that plan. So what's the alternative to a basic? And that is an enhanced plan. So what is an enhanced plan? An enhanced plan is a plan that has supplemental benefits. So they take that standard, the $590 and 25%, and in one or both, they lower it. So instead of a $590 deductible, maybe it's a $0 deductible. Maybe it's a $300 deductible. Maybe it's a $570 deductible. It's still lower than $590. So at least you have $20 there in a supplemental. Maybe the 25% is a flat copay. Maybe it's 20%. Maybe it's 17%. It's something lower than 25. It could be in one of the columns. So like just the deductible could be lower and this copay could still be at 25%. Or it could be that the deductible stays at $590 and the copay goes down from 25 to 20 or 17 or whatever. That's still a supplemental benefit on that side, even though it's not in the deductible, or they could lower both. So it's a factor. And remember, whatever they lower becomes a supplemental benefit, and that amount gets counted towards troop. And I'm going to show you some examples here shortly. So that could be a very good thing. Now, those are the pros, right? So a pro would also be, it's kind of a negative that, and it's going to have a higher premium. right? It's going to have a higher premium, might have a sky high premium. But I'm going to show you examples where those sky high premiums work in your favor. So don't rule it out, right? You don't want to be narrow-minded. Don't fall for the tricks. Look through it. Have your agent help you through it. This year is going to be more important than probably any other year to have an agent. And it is going to be because of stuff like this. Because if you don't make the right choice, then it very well could cost you more than it would have cost you, right? By not having the knowledge behind this. So can we expect these to have higher premiums? Sure. But I would also expect it to have a broader formulary, which would be a good thing. Because even if you're on low-cost generics today, remember there's 365 days in a year. You don't know what's going to happen in 3 days, let alone 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 10 months. You might end up on 1, 2, 3 expensive brand name meds. And if you're on a basic plan, one, it needs to be on formulary. And remember that formulary is going to be more restrictive. But even if it's on formulary, you're going to be paying out that $2,000 unless somebody else is paying something on your behalf, like a grant. But we'll have to assume that it's probably going to be you paying out that $2,000 till you hit that catastrophic level of the 2,000, which we're also calling max out of pocket, right? So on the pros of an enhanced alternative plan is the fact that that money less than the $590 and the 25% is going to become a supplemental benefit, and that's going to get counted towards troops. The cons being higher premium, right? So I mean, you have to think, if you're on nothing but low cost generics and you don't see anything coming as far as your health is doing good, now anything could happen. Keep in mind, things could change on a dime. Anything could happen, but we have to be realistic and say, okay, I'm only on 2 low cost generics. Do I really want to spend $90 a month for a drug plan when I could literally be getting this medication even off my plan on a discount card for dirt cheap? Probably not. In that case, you might want to lean towards a basic alternative lower cost plan. Nothing wrong with that. But some people like to be prepared, right? I mean, we like to get that extra insurance for the what ifs. And if you like to be covered for the what ifs, you might want to look at maybe a middle premium plan that happens to be an alternative or enhanced alternative. There will be some, not going to be a lot. There's not going to be a lot of drug plans, but there will be some enhanced alternative plans that are kind of in the middle of the road. Are they higher than what we've been liking to pay? Yes, unfortunately. That is a result of the Inflation Reduction Act. These premiums, though, are much less than what they were going to be when things started first coming out this summer. Another topic there, but CMS made some adjustments when they realized how high the premiums were going to go. And now the premiums are coming out not as bad as what they were going to. So, you know, we always want to be thankful for what we have, right? So if you want to give yourself some extra insurance to say, you know what, I'm only on a couple of generics, but just in case I start on a brand, I'll take a middle of the road premium plan. Just make sure it's an enhanced alternative. Or if you're on at least one brand name med or more, strongly consider looking at those higher premium enhanced plans. And I'm going to show you the math as to why. So I'm kind of skimming through my document because I can explain it without having this document, right? So how are you going to know if it's an enhanced plan? Well, they should be telling you, right? It might be somewhere in the summary of benefit. Maybe your agent knows because they should be paying attention. You'll get the annual notice of change, which a lot of people are currently getting in their mailbox, that will talk about their current plan and if it is a basic or an alternative. But if you can't find it anywhere, all you have to look at is the deductible and tier 3 copay. And remember what I said. If that deductible's at $590 and that tier 3 copay is at 25%, you are on a basic plan, right? If it is lower than $590 or 25%, one or the other or both, it's an enhanced. Now, the lower they are, if they're both lower, maybe no deductible and a flat copay, might be worth the price. So that is that one. Now I'm going to go in and actually show you some math. So don't let me overwhelm you. But this is interesting. And I hate math. It's just not me. I have had a lot of it, but I would rather have chemistry than I would math, even though chemistry has quite a bit of math. But this stuff will drive you crazy. So what I have here, it's broken down January through December. Move my picture so I can actually see. So here's the plan. Here is a basic PDP plan, basic standalone prescription drug plan. Okay. In this plan, the deductible is $590. The copay for tier 3 is 25%. What kind of plan is that? That's a basic alternative plan because it's $590 and 25%. Okay. I'm going to skip down and show you this, and then we'll get more into the math. Here is a low-cost PDP plan. Again, a standalone prescription drug plan. Deductible of $590. Tier 3 copay 17%. Enhanced alternative plan because it's lower than 25%. So the difference between the 25 and the 17, which is 8%, is a supplemental benefit. And that 8% will be counted towards troop, right? Here is a high cost PDP plan. And I'm not, when I say high cost, we will talk about the premium over there, but this is just a random high cost plan. Zero deductible and a flat copay of $45. Now remember, and I just used an example. So if you have a $600 medication and it's 25% copay, that's $150. Your copay will be $45. So the difference is significant, right? What if you were getting $1,000 medication? That would have been a $250 copay. Your copay is going to be $45. That's an even bigger supplemental benefit that gets counted towards your troop that's not coming out of your pocket. See what I'm saying? Here is an MAPD, so a Medicare Advantage with a prescription drug plan. This one has no deductible and a flat copay. Enhanced benefit, right? The $590, the whole $590, just like up here, is a supplemental benefit, plus the difference between what would be the 25% of the cost of the drug and what you're actually paying out of pocket. Here, this one has a deductible of $300. Now, it only affects tiers 3 through 5. However, if you're on a tier 3 through 5, then the deductible is going to apply. And then there's a $290 difference between the $590 and the $300. that is a supplemental benefit. So if you've gone through and you've paid your plan, right? You've gotten prescriptions that have paid this deductible, then that's $290 that gets counted towards your $2,000 out of pocket, and you're not actually taking it out of your pocket. And then they have $47. So let's go back up to the top and talk. We're going to use $1,000 per month medication to make the math easy. So if the drug costs $1,000 per month, so there's a $590 deductible, which means that first month you pay all $590, right? And then you pay 25% of the cost of the drug on top of that. So $590 plus 25% of the drug, which is $250. In January, you're going to pay out $692.50. Now, that does mean the deductible is now paid for, right? So now in February, you're going to go pick up the same drug, and you're going to pay 25% of $1,000 is $250. And all of what you're paying gets counted towards troop. So you're paying $692.50 in January, then $250, $250, $250, $250, $250. And then in July, they tell you it's $57.50. That is because that is all that's left before you hit the $2,000 max out of pocket. So now you have paid out $2,000, and in July you paid $57.50, but from January to July, you have paid out $2,000 of your own pocket. Now, this happened to be a zero premium plan. So 0 per month equals 0 per year. So you end up out of pocket at $2,000. Okay. So you think, well, dang, a zero premium plan, that's a steal. Well, you just paid out $2,000, right? I don't know how much of a steal that is, but just think about it. Just keep this in mind. So let's look at the next example, low cost. So you still have the $590 deductible, but now you have 17%. So 8% gets counted towards troop that's not coming out of your pocket. So let's see how that does. So you're going to pay the deductible and 17%. It's going to end up being $659.70 for the month of January. But what gets counted towards troop? $840, because it's going to be the $590 plus the 25% of the cost of the med. So $250 plus $590, $840 gets counted. Here, you see where you have the 25%, because that is the base. So the 25% every month gets counted towards troop, even though you're only paying 17% of that. So just look at it as, okay, the first month on a medication that costs more than what my deductible is, it's going to be the deductible plus 25% that gets counted towards troop. After that, you count 25% of whatever they tell you is the cost of the med. You don't have to add what you have paid and subtract, so subtract, no, too much math, right? At the end of the day, $590, 25% of the cost gets counted towards troop. The only difference in there is how much comes out of your wallet, right? That's just a bonus. Okay, so $590, 25%. So here, $840 gets counted, then $250, then $250, and on, right? June is when you're going to hit the $2,000 troop, and you'll be there'll be $160 towards it. But look what you're paying. You're paying the $659.70, $170, $170, $170, $170, $27.20. What did you pay out of the $2,000? You paid $1,366.90, because you didn't have to be the only one paying out. what the supplemental benefit actually contributed. So you didn't pay out the whole $2,000. You paid out $1,366.90. But keep in mind, this plan has a $43 per month premium compared to the zero premium up here. So $43 per month equals $516 for the year. Add the yearly premium with what you pay out of pocket, you end up putting out $1,882.90. Even though you're paying a $43 per month premium, because it's an enhanced alternative plan, you're paying less than $2,000. Something to think about. So this zero premium plan might not be what it's all cracked up to be if you're taking a brand name med. Keep that in mind. Let's look at the high dollar PDP. Again, this is a standalone prescription drug plan. Zero deductible, which will tell you they're contributing $590 that is not coming out of your pocket, right? So $590 gets contributed even though you're not paying it. You have a flat copay of $45. Now remember, the 25% times 1,000 is $250, right? So you do 250 minus 45, that's $205 going towards troop that you're not paying out of pocket, because you're going to pay zero deductible and $45 per month for that one medication. Keep in mind, this is just one medication. If you were getting more medications, it would be more, but then you're going to end up hitting the max out of pocket quicker. But in this case, one medication every month, you pay $45, 45, 45, 45, 45, 45, 45. In July, it stops. What's gotten counted? The $590 that you did not pay, the 25%, which ends up being $205 that you did not pay, right? So it ends up being, if you do all the math here, $2,000 is what gets counted towards troop with this supplemental benefit. But what you're paying out of your pocket is $315 to hit that $2,000, because that's a supplemental, right? So that's not a bad deal. But you got to remember, I said this is a high cost PDP plan. When I say high cost, the monthly premium is $121 per month. You think, man, that's high. That's as high as my supplement. Okay. Yep. I get it. I get it. I get it. But in the course of the year, will you be saving money? So if you're comparing with these other ones, you take the 121 per month times 12, that ends up being $1,452. You add the premium, just to be apples to apples, add the premium to what you paid out of pocket for that drug for the course of the year until you reach the $2,000 cap. That equals $1,767. That includes the premium. So even though this plan charges $121 per month compared to this plan that charges zero, you end up saving money. Eye-opening, isn't it? Yes, it is. Here is an MAPD plan. Here's a couple just to look at. So we have zero premiums over here. Okay, so zero premiums would be zero right here. I didn't fill in this because it ends up being this right here, because there's zero that we're adding, right? So this plan has a zero deductible. We might not see many of those, right? We're going to probably see some MAPDs, if not all of them, with some kind of deductible of some kind. But we'll see what we can get, right? We'll see what we get starting October 1st. We'll see what they give us. Right now, we're all in the dark. So the only thing we can do is make assumptions and speculate. So we're just going to assume that we can find a plan somewhere in the country that has zero deductible, and it's an MAPD plan that includes that prescription drug plan. That's why it says PD. Zero deductible, you have a flat copay of $45. Same med, $1,000, you're paying $45. Same math, they're paying $590 plus the 25% every month. So they're paying the $590 to get done with, and then $250 until you reach the $2,000 true out of pocket, otherwise known as TROOP. What did you end up paying out of pocket? $315 to hit that 2,000. And now that your drugs are zero, as long as they're on formulary. I keep repeating myself, but it's important, because if it's not on formulary, no deal, right? But if it's on formulary, it's going to be zero for the rest of the year. Not a bad gig, right? $315. This one has a $300 deductible, and it applies to tiers 3 through 5. There's still supplemental benefits. They're still below $590. You have a flat copay of $47. Same thing. You run through $590 plus 25%, right? But of course, in this case, they're paying. See if I did that right. I believe so. I'll have to double check my math. But you end up, because you now have a deductible. So you have the deductible plus the 47. So 347, 47, 47, yada, yada. You end up paying $629 for the year on that plan. And you've hit the max out of pocket. So the big lesson here is know the difference between a basic alternative and an enhanced alternative. Okay? Because it's something to consider. Now, I know a lot of people, when it comes to the PDPs, I know the situation that we have, at least understand this, okay? So that you can educate, even if it's on a quick aspect. Or if you're not going to be doing a lot of PDPs, but you probably needed to be, share my video, right? I'll do the education for you so that your client or the consumer can know what to watch for, so that you don't throw them to the wolves, and have them not know what these opportunities are. So do the right thing and at least say, hey, I'm not going to be able to help you this year because of X, Y, and Z. And we all know what that is. But I want to make sure that I'm still doing due diligence and taking care of you because you're my client and I have you on a med sup and I want to keep you that way. So I want you to go watch this video, and it's going to explain the difference between the two different plan options that are coming out. And you could throw in the fact that it's being explained by a pharmacist. That might help. So I just think this is imperative that consumers understand the difference, because they're going to look at this at the zero premium and think, oh, that's a good deal. Well, I beg to differ if they're on any type of brand name med or a couple of them. Look at the math. It's not a good deal. So make sure that they understand that. All right, I'll get off my soapbox because God knows I can stay on it. And I will wrap it up. So hope you understand this. Let me know if you have any questions. That's referring to agents. They know how to reach me. Ask questions. Ask your agent. Tell your friends they need an agent. I cannot stress the importance enough. We're not appreciated. Agents are not appreciated the way that they need to be appreciated. They do a lot of things for their clients, as well as their community members with them. They go to church with them, shop with them, party with them, go to parties with them. We genuinely care about our clients. Agents are not given enough credit, but at the same time, not everybody knows that an agent doesn't cost them a dime. So please use an agent this year. I don't care who you call, but find out who your local agents are and use one. If you don't like them, get rid of them, get another one. But for all means, get an agent, okay? They can teach you stuff like this that is going to save you money in the long run. Take care and have a good evening.